Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to give it a minute or two to let all of our guests join us this afternoon before we get started, so just hang tight for us. We'll give it about one more minute. I don't know about anybody else, but when it's quiet, I'll start playing Jeopardy music in my head. I don't know why all the songs that I choose that I go to that one. Jeopardy music, huh? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get us started now. Whoever's going to join is just going to join. But good afternoon, everyone. My name is Landon Coles. I use the pronouns he, him, his, and welcome everyone to the She's Howard Own Your Power event, the Power of Intersectionality, hosted by the Estee Lauder Companies in partnership with the Howard University Department of Alumni Relations. It's a pleasure to be with you all this afternoon. I know that we are virtual, but I'm sending you good positive energy through the screen to wake you on up, whether you had work today or class or whatever it is you was just coming from. I'm sending all the good positive feels to you. So let's go ahead and get started. Next slide for me, please. So today, of course, we're talking about the power of intersectionality. No individual exists on one axis of identity. So yeah, I'm Black, but there are many identities that comprise me and all of you. So here is my wheel. So this is how I choose to introduce myself. So first off, I'm Black. I'm Black and I'm proud. That's the first thing you're going to see when you see me, and I'm out loud with it. I want you to see me for my color. The second thing is I am a cisgendered male, meaning that I identify with the gender identity that I was born with. Thirdly, I'm Southern. I don't know if you already heard it, but it's already there in the accent. I'm sure you can hear it, especially those of you from New York, because that's the first question I get in every Uber that I get in. Where are you from? Because it can't be here. Fourth identity, and this one is one of my most important ones. I'm a missionary Baptist Christian. I was born in the South, church every Sunday. Grandma, great grandma, still the mother of the church, 90 years old and still kicking. So this is who I am. And finally, I am a proud graduate of the University of Miami. So that's me. And this is, again, just an example of the different identities that comprise who we all are and goes into the power of this event today. Today, our discussion leans on the ways in which our panelists' unique backgrounds empower their day-to-day responsibilities as thought leaders. You're going to hear from change agents towards inclusive beauty and championing belonging by thoughtfully challenging the status quo to support the needs of an evolving consumer and workforce. So before we get started, let's hear from all of you. Drop it in the chat. What does intersectionality mean to you? It could be one word, it could be a sentence. Somebody got to interact with me, and I do honor silence. So I have no problem waiting patiently for at least one brave person to put something in the chat. Panelists, that could be a challenge to you too. You could drop something in the chat for what that means, and I'll keep us chugging. Somebody give me something. Play the Jeopardy music. Honoring the whole person. Okay, we got one. I love that. All right. Give me one more. Somebody give me one more. Something else. I know y'all feel it. Give me something. Come on, I need a little more artist participation. Like I say, I honor silence. I'm patient. I'm patient, but I'm not that patient. Okay, so all that to be said, we thank you. I love that answer, honoring the whole person. Love that answer. And so we're going to keep on going. So all that to showcase the depth and importance of this topic. Intersectionality is defined race, class, gender, and other individual characteristics intersect with one another and how they influence the modes in which we experience privilege. So with that being said, I know that we do have a first poll question. So with that, to kick off this event, Owning Your Power, hold on, wait, did you attend the kickoff event, Owning Your Power with Nicole Munson? So let's kick off the poll. Make sure everybody votes. Did you attend this kickoff event, Owning Your Power with Nicole Munson? Tell the truth. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I don't know if they want to display the results. Okay, all right. We got parity, but that's okay because you're here today, and that's what matters. That is A-okay. All right, so keeping us moving along, I want to promote, before we get to introducing our speakers, a raffle engagement. So that's why I say it's important that you're here today. As you all know, at the end of today's session, we're going to be giving away products from your favorite ELC brands, such as MAC Cosmetics, Clinique, Tom Ford Beauty, and more. So at the end of our panel and our Q&A, we want you to put on the virtual stage to test your ELC and She's Howard knowledge. So we encourage you to stay engaged and present, as the answers can lie around any corner. All right, so with that being said, I have the privilege of virtually inviting 4 leaders to the virtual stage for a dynamic discussion on the power of intersectionality. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to rattle them off one by one. So I'll start first up with YASMIN Humphrey, and I just want you to get us kicked off. Tell us about your journey in the beauty industry, introduce us through your wheel, and get us kicked off. On mute. That's all right. That's all right, though. I want people to hear what you got to say.
I'm here, guys.
Yeah, it is.
That little malfunction. Hi, everyone. My name is YASMIN Humphrey, a J now because I'm recently married. Well, I guess it's not recent. Does 2 years, almost 2 years count as a newlywed? Not sure. But I am a proud Howard University alum, class of 2011, School of Architecture. I also met my husband at Howard in the School of Architecture as well. Just to give you a little background about myself, I kind of have an unconventional journey to the beauty industry. Prior to joining Estee, I worked kind of in the construction industry on various projects within the DC and Chicago area. And then I kind of moved on and spent a little time in real estate private equity before going to business school for my MBA in 2017. While in business school, that's kind of when I leaned towards exploring more of my passion, which is the beauty industry, which led me to joining Estee Lauder as a part of their presidential management program in 2019. Currently, my current role is now I'm involved on the Estee Lauder brand. And my role is to actually manage the timeline cycle from R&D development to product development, all the way to manufacturing and distribution on our global brand supply chain. And a couple things that I want to call out, kind of like what I bring to the table and how my background kind of led me here. As you see from my wheel here, proud Black American, female. I came from a predominantly male-oriented industry. So a focus of mine was always driving towards a place where it shows women in leadership, which Estee does an excellent job of. Also, I'm Southern, which was quite a culture shock when I moved to New York when I joined Estee. Like Lando, you can tell I'm Southern right off bat. And then I also love all things design. So that also makes me fall in love with my role, because I'm able to work on new product launches and really see how we kind of put and make a product and bring you our beautiful products at the end of today. So I'm happy to be on the panel with you guys, and I'll look forward to speaking with everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, YASMIN. Next up, I'm going to kick it on over to the amazing TOSIN OYEKOYA.
Thank you, Landon, and welcome, everyone. As Landon has said, I am TOSIN OYEKOYA. I am the education specialist for Estee Lauder Company's Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Center of Excellence. I'm from New York by way of Lagos, Nigeria. I did earn my Bachelor's of Arts in Journalism and Communications from the illustrious Howard University, as well as my Executive Master's in Human Resources Management from Sickland School of Business. So I have a very broad background from healthcare to beauty, and about 7 years of experience in HR and education and training. I specialize in unconscious bias, microinequities, allyship, and intersectionality. So I am Nigerian American. My parents, at the very young age of 20 and 23, migrated to the US, settling in Alabama. So we are not a wealthy family. So coming into a new country just receiving their education. They had broken English, just really building from scratch. So due to their bravery, it really allowed me to have the opportunity to attend public schools, private schools, excuse me, boarding schools, and also receive scholarships to further my education. So being the firstborn, first generation born in the US has really sculpted who I am as a person, because really taking in the bravery that my parents took at such a young age, and making sure that education was a very important indicator in our family. So career is very important to me. It's very interesting. As I've said, I'm Nigerian. A lot of my uncles and aunts are wondering, because I am a woman, what I should be focused on is family instead of career. But for the past over a decade now, I've been really building my career, and it has become a very important part of who I am. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation and also conversing with the rest of our panelists.
Thank you so much for that. Next up, we have another amazing panelist, SHAUNICE Simmons.
Hi, everyone. So my name is SHAUNICE Simmons, and I am a CEO Global Presidential Associate at the company on the marketing track, currently on a rotation in local and cultural relevancy for North America, also known as multicultural marketing. So as a Black American woman, a member of Generation Z, and someone who is proudly raised in Las Vegas, Nevada, with roots in Omaha, Nebraska, all of these things really inform the work that I do today. I don't know who else would tell my team that Maya the Dawn is performing, if not me. So I really appreciate the ability that my job allows me to have to stay tuned in to social media and what's going on, and translate that into insights for our brands to take and run with. Also, I started out my career in beauty as an entrepreneur. I was a professional girly girl as a kid, and I was just always involved in makeup and skincare. So being a cheerleader in high school, I had to do makeup anyways. And my mom suggested one day that I make a business out of it. I said, oh, that's a great idea. So I launched a makeup artistry business on Instagram and allowed that to take me to the Estee Lauder companies. And that is really how I got my start in beauty. And since I've been at the Estee Lauder companies, ERGs and events have really sustained me. I moved all the way from Las Vegas to New York, and speaking of culture shock, that was a huge one. And it took a while for me to adjust to the environment here, to find my little community and really figure out what made me happy as like a blossoming young adult, just starting out in my career. So Noble and really just moving around in the city, seeing what's going on has really, really helped me to grow my confidence and just who I am, and also what I want to do in my career.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And last, but certainly not least, Christian BALMASEDA-LUCCA.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm really, really excited to be part of this panel. My name is Christian BALMASEDA-LUCCA. I graduated with my undergrad in communications from Manhattan College about 10 years ago, so I'm aging myself a little bit. And then after that, worked in higher education for the better part of 10 years. So my pathway into the beauty industry was very unconventional in the sense that I worked in nonprofits and education for the vast majority of my career. Then decided to go back and get my MBA at Cornell University, which was my previous employer. And after graduating, went into a role in the CEO Global Presidential Management Associate Program, so a PMA for short, and joined the Estee Lauder companies back in September of last year. And since joining, I've worked in product marketing with the Jo Malone London North America team, and am now working with the Tom Ford Beauty team. So I'm excited to hear that you all may have the opportunity to get some Tom Ford Beauty swag. Some aspects of my identity that really shape what I bring to the table and who I bring to work every single day. I am Afro-Latino, specifically Puerto Rican. And if I want to be super, super specific, I'm actually New Yorican. I was born and raised in New York City. My grandparents both came to New York in the 1950s from Puerto Rico, but came to Spanish Harlem, which is basically Little Puerto Rico, if you're not familiar with New York City, and that shaped my upbringing. I'm also a gay cisgender male, and that impacts the perspective that I bring working in what was traditionally perceived as a female industry. You know, we focusing predominantly on the female consumer. I'm working to dispel the myth that only women care about their look and only women care about how they smell. Something I'm really, really passionate about is specifically men's fragrance. And so I've been excited to work with both Jo Malone and Tom Ford Beauty.
Thank you so much, Christian. Now, I'm sure y'all can see we got some heavy hitters on this panel. They bring a breadth of different identities. They grew up in different places. They got different accents coming from different regions of the country. Somebody came from Nebraska. I know you came from Nebraska, Shanice. We're going to talk about that later. So all that to be said, we have an amazing panel here today. And I said all that to say, this should be a fluid conversation. So drop your questions in the chat, use the Q&A feature as we are asking the panelists questions, and we will have time later in this session for an interactive Q&A. So with that being said, I think we're gonna stop sharing screen now and bring us on to the virtual stage where all of us are highlighted. I think. There it is, we about to kick it into high gear. All right. So with that being said, I have the first question up for the entire panel. So, and I know I have my own ideas and presumptions when I first started working for the Estee Lauder companies. A historically white brand, they got Black people that work there. Will I be included? I'm a dude, so how is this really gonna work with me being in the beauty industry? So a lot of different questions that started. Tomorrow marks 7 months for me, and that's what I remember when I was thinking a few months back. So with that being said, thinking back to your early career in the beauty industry, and for some of us, we're still in our early career, what were your initial assumptions about the industry, and did you feel any hesitation to show up as your full, authentic self? And this is for all of our panelists. So I'm gonna kick it over to you, Christian.
Yeah, much like what you said, I had a lot of assumptions that I would only be working on products that were catered towards women. That, you know, when I first learned about the Presidential Management Associate Program, which is a rotational program for postgraduates, it's positioned as the Estee Lauder companies. I didn't know at the time how many brands we own. So the Estee Lauder companies is a brand-led organization. It's not just a brand itself. And I assumed wrongly that I would be working on products for, forgive me for saying this, but for older women, for women in 50 and above, because when I heard the name Estee Lauder growing up, I always associated it with the products that my grandmother was using. I neglected to do my research at the time and didn't realize just how many products I use. I'm a customer. I'm a big Jo Malone London customer. I love Tom Ford Beauty. I love Clinique. I love Origins, and didn't realize that they were all part of the same family. I also really did have imposter syndrome. I mentioned before, I'm new to the beauty industry. I spent the vast majority of my career working in education and didn't think that there was a space for me here. And I quickly learned that I was wrong within the first month of working within the company.
Spot on. Definitely agree with that. Tosin, I'll kick the same question on over to you.
Yes, definitely. Coming into Estee Lauder, my first beauty organization, it was definitely a little terrifying, only because I've worked with nonprofits before. So this was my first corporate role. So, but I quickly learned, same as Christian, that I could bring my whole self. That although I had dealt with microaggressions and microinequities in the past, that really the best way to win here at Estee Lauder is by being your authentic self. It's by really leveraging the strengths that you bring and having confidence in it. So initially, same as Christian, I did have a little bit of imposter syndrome. Just knowing that, Estee Lauder is a big company, it's a big name. There are so many, high level people and there's just so much information to learn coming in, but giving yourself grace and allowing yourself to really be in the present and realize your own power and realize that you're here for a reason, and really feeling the sense of belonging from Estee Lauder's community really helped me to really be my true self, my authentic self.
Definitely. Yasmin?
Yeah, so I can echo a lot of the same sentiments. To be honest, when I joined Estee, I kind of reached a point in my personal journey where I already committed, like, you're going to get me how I am. Wherever I'm going to show up, I'm going to show up my full self. And that is how I'm going to be day one to day infinity. But one thing I do have to call out is that even though you might have that commitment to yourself, when you join a new organization, you always have that question, is yourself, will it fit into the culture? Is this culture for you? Is it meant to appreciate what you bring to the table? And I felt like that was definitely highlighted, especially being in when I started in the presidential management program. I also knew that I spoke to colleagues outside in different industries in beauty, and I definitely had initial assumptions. I heard that beauty was fast paced, you had to be on point, fashionable, face has to be beat every day, high heels, you just have to always be on. And while in a lot of factors, some things are true, a lot of it's not, because I really love kind of where we're embracing the beauty industry. And what I feel Estee embraces is that beauty is in the diversity of the people in the workplace and the diversity of the consumer. Beauty is what is our differences, and that's what makes it so magical. So since being with the company, I've definitely never had an issue with bringing my full self, and I've actually grown within myself because now I'm able to meet other people from different backgrounds, similar to the panelists here, that allows me to explore and understand different perspectives.
Definitely. And last but not least, Shanice.
Absolutely. I echo everyone's sentiments. And I will say that my journey into the company, I started with a virtual internship. So I had a taste of what it was like. The team I worked for was small, however, so I thought that I had just gotten a good group, right? But going into the office, moving into the city, I was fully expecting Devil Wears Prada meets Succession, truly. But I came in and I said, you know what, I'm going to make sure that my face is beat. I'm going to make sure my hair is done, that I look business professional. So in the event that being my full self isn't, the right thing to be doing, that no one can say anything to me, right? But quickly, I let my guard down when I realized that, again, like Yasmin said a second ago, that being your true self is really valued here. And there's a community for everyone, whether it has to do with beauty or not. So I really did enjoy and really value my time with the company.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you all for those answers. And I am going to add mine in here just for 1 second, and I'm going to challenge what the four of them just said a little bit, because I'm going to take it back to the very definition of today's panel, intersectionality. So when I introduced the definition earlier, there was a quote in there that I said, all other individual characteristics that comprise who we are. One component that we did not talk about was the level at which you function in this company and the space for which you function in this company. We are a 60,000 plus employee company globally. So all of us sit in offices every day, but we have employees that go to work in factories. We have employees that go to work on shop floors. And as for me and myself, I'm an entry-level coordinator who's only not even a year outside of undergrad. So when you ask me the question of, can I show up as my full and authentic self, my identity becomes less about just race and gender and who I am, but who I am in the ecosystem of Estee Lauder. And that also filters a lot of how I show up in the workplace as well. So sometimes I would say no, because I'm a coordinator. When I'm appearing before a vice president or an SVP, I'm going to put on a face because I recognize that I have to navigate, because politics is everywhere in the world. So that's something that I'm throwing out there for food for thought. That's something that you all can sort of think about as well, that we have people at different levels on this panel too. So their vantage point, the teams they work for, their supervisors also influence their experience here at the company, and that goes into their identity. With that being said, I'm going to take us to a quick poll question. So the next poll question is, as an employee, do you feel like you can bring your full self to work? I'll give you about 5 more seconds. 5, 4, if you're on your phone, vote. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's close it. I'm seeking interaction here. Okay, all right. Sometimes. And I would challenge everyone, whoever voted, especially for you knows and you sometimes, I want you to drop in the chat why you feel that way. I want you to drop in the chat why you think that is. Sometimes you can show up as yourself and sometimes not. For those of you who said no, why no? And I'm very curious to hear that. And of course, again, as we know, depending on how you identify your gender and your race, all these things go into it. And like I said, your supervisor has a big impact on it too, because I've had many moments here at the company as well. So not everything is gumdrops and rainbows, but we have a company here that is striving and pushing for greater and better. Okay. I work for myself, so I don't have that issue. See, perspective, vantage point, being an entrepreneur, that's the vantage point. You set the tone and the culture because you work for you. I love that. I love that. All right, so I'll keep monitoring the chat and keep us going. So next up, the question I have for you goes specifically to TOSIN. So throughout your career, you worked in positions that have helped to promote an inclusive workplace and cross-culture environments, both in the healthcare field, and now here you are in beauty. And though they represent different priorities for a consumer, they each have their shortcoming in equity and in representation, especially like you said, when it comes to microaggressions and discrimination. So in your opinion, what excites you about the impact that you're able to create here at the Estee Lauder companies and fostering an inclusive culture? And how do you see this being reflected to consumers?
That is a great question, Landon. So when I worked in education, I worked for a nonprofit where children with disabilities were partnered with to have human assistance. And in that role, I realized that not the people that are being hired weren't the right people. So I joined the HR team, and I really wanted to advocate for people with disabilities. And then when I transitioned into working for healthcare, I work for an organ procurement organization. So really helping people of all races, all ages, people with disabilities, and just advocating for them if they have that desire to give the gift of life further on. So what's so real exciting with working with Estee is that you don't have to fight as much to advocate for people, because everyone seems to be on the same page when it comes to our different brands, regions, functions, affiliates. Everyone is excited about inclusion, diversity, and equity. Everyone wants the space to talk about it, which is amazing. In my past roles, just having a platform to talk about these things was problematic, but as a champion of ID&E, I would push for it to make sure that all voices are heard. But here at Estee, it's just really exciting that we have done so much when it comes to inclusion, diversity, and equity. There's just so much passion. We are breaking we have groundbreaking records. We're doing so much, and people want to do more. I want to do more. And what's also exciting is that we have this safe space to discuss ID&E related topics. That's not common in a lot of places. It's different to say, yes, we're going to have, ID&E a part of our organization. But when you work for an organization, when you see it in our different ERGs, when you see it in different communities, when you see it globally, and people are practicing these initiatives and they want to be engaged in it, they're constantly seeking out different ways that we can really elevate ID&E. That really excites me because I'm feeding off everyone's energy. I'm already excited. I love ID&E. I've been advocating for the past 10 years of coming into a space in a community where everyone wants the same thing. It's very exciting.
Definitely, definitely. And I love that you mentioned it, that sort of elevation, that excitement surrounding ID&E work. And I also want to qualify what you said too, in terms of ID&E work takes so many different forms. That's why I love what Chloe Martin said in the chat about, I voted yes because I love knowing who isn't okay with it. They will call themselves out. That's advocacy and ID&E work too, not in the traditional sense, but showing up as your true authentic self in and of itself is challenging status quo. So I love that. I love that work that you're doing, TOSIN. So next, I want to bring you in here, Yasmin. So like TOSIN, you've made career shifts through industries that influence communities from different angles, especially from a social and economic standpoint. You've held a broad span of roles and responsibilities, working in building infrastructure to equity firms, and now in beauty and our global brand supply chain. Whoop, whoop. So what have you discovered about your point of view and skill set that makes you indispensable as a leader in your field?
That's a great question, Landon. I will have to say that one thing I know is that I am a people-forward leader. I don't believe in waiting on the answers. I believe in going to find the answers. And I also know that I'm not the person that knows everything in the room. We're surrounded by people who are experts in so many different areas within the industry. And the reason I say that is coming from construction, one day, you know, I'll be working with the architects and engineering, doing future planning, and the next day I'll be in the field with the foreman, trying to figure out solving a problem out there with the workers for days until we get the problem solved. And I kind of saw that I could pivot that same ability to kind of transcend spaces and meet people where they are to the beauty industry. And it's kind of funny, Lana, you said earlier about like, you know, we have people that works on all different levels. Right now I'm on the corporate level, but I did spend some time working in the factory. And one thing I wanted to call out that I leveraged kind of my experience in the construction field is that when working in one of our factories in the Melville area, my role was to figure out how we can produce more efficiently. In order to do that, I kind of entered the factory. And one thing you guys may want to know is that we are a family-led company, but we also have people within our factories that are truly a family. I mean, individuals who have been there 20, 30 years on the factory floor. So for you to go in there, for me to go in there, you know, younger than a lot of people, telling them like, hey, I have this great idea.
Right.
This is how I'm going to make it more efficient. I need you to roll out this process. Was not going to fly. So I had to really seek on my background and see, well, how did I influence people across spaces? And one thing that I was able to do is that I said, you know what, let me sit on the line. Let me see what's the average day of a worker on the line. Let me see where are the hiccups, because maybe we have a high level view, but do we truly understand what the day-to-day experience is? And that was an eye opener for me. And I was able to like seek suggestions, speak to the people on the floor, ask for their opinions, and then utilize their opinions when speaking to higher ups. In my current role, I do the same thing across cross-functional teams. I think my ability of having that experience on a manufacturing floor and now being able to go to R&D and product development and say on an early, like, I know that further down we might, you know, reach these type of issues if we go this pathway. I think that's a great idea. Or if they need expertise, I can pick up a phone call. So I think my point of view of always being a people forward leader, utilizing our resources, asking for advice, not being the person to say, I know it, let me tell you, but saying like, hey, let's find out. Let's have this person, let's speak to this person. Let's get this person's expertise has really driven kind of more faster solutions for me personally in my everyday work, and better execution across functions, as well as respect among the teams, because I'm a huge person on open communication, transparency, and valuing every member on the team.
Definitely. And that idea of being a people first leader, the reason you just touched on something super powerful, because I do global supply chain communications. And the thing that I've coined the term, I call it corporate privilege. Every day when we get up and we get to work from our little fancy laptops and we dress up in our little suits and we come to the office and we're able to smell good all day and attend nice fancy panels like this and go to conferences and represent the company at a corporate level. But there are people in our company who, were it not for them, we would not have a job. Exactly. So all that to be said, that idea, your awareness, that goes back to the very idea of this panel, intersectionality. All the people whom you're talking here today, we benefit from corporate privilege. When we want to work from home because we're not feeling well, we can still work from home and get paid the same money that we do when we go into the office. Those are things a lot of our people on the shop floor don't benefit from. So this, again, going into this idea of where you exist in the company, who you work for, where you come from. When I had a chance to tour Melville, a lot of those individuals, they're the age of our grandparents. You know what I'm saying? I interact with a lot of people, and depending on which community you're in, that's where they draw from the local workforce. So you might have heavy pockets of Indian influence. You might have heavy pockets of African Americans, older African Americans. So depending on who you're talking to, where you're at, it's very different. That corporate privilege, it is real. I love that you touched on that, Yasmin. So with that being said, I know I asked Tosin and Yasmin about jumping around from different communities, but now I want to bring Shanice and Christian into this as well. So I want you to think back to the early stages of your journey here at ELC, maybe even earlier in your career, and name a moment where you found the right community, you found your voice and authority, or you found passion that helped you form your own voice in your role. So I'll kick it over to you, Christian, first.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I'd say I learned how to use my voice in my previous job with my previous employer, which was Cornell University's New York City campus. And that was not always a smooth journey. There were certainly some hiccups along the way as I found my voice and finally found a platform in which I could be heard. But when I first started working with the organization, I was very mindful of how I was coming to the table each day, what I was saying, how it might be perceived, because I was working in academia, and academia has been and continues to be very elitist. I did not go to an Ivy League institution undergrad, and I found I experienced from some faculty saying, well, you don't have a higher level degree. You didn't go to an Ivy League, so you don't understand. So it took some time for me to get over that hump. Where I found success within the organization was through advocacy. Not just self-advocacy, but advocacy for others. So speaking out when I saw opportunities for improvement or opportunities to correct a mistake that was not happening to me, but happening to others, at my level. And from there, the dean of the campus asked that I put together a task force around DEI, inclusion and belonging, specifically for staff, because we didn't have what Estee Lauder has, these wonderful employee resource groups where colleagues can come together, network, talk about important issues that are specific to different aspects of their identities. So I had the fortune of being able to help build that out for the Cornell Tech campus in my previous role. And that journey really helped me to find my voice and helped me to find the confidence to actually be an advocate in those spaces.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Shanice, I'm gonna bring you on in here too. Same question, sort of that moment, that position, that role, that time where you found your power, you found your voice, and how you moved in that.
Absolutely. So there's a very specific scenario that I remember when you bring up this question.
Come on, story.
So it was my first internship. I was interning with Smashbox Cosmetics within the Estee Lauder portfolio, and we were putting together the very first campus ambassador program. Now, I was excited. I'm in college. I'm like, oh, yes, I know exactly what we're doing. I know what's going on. I know what the girls like. So I was really excited, but being mindful, of course, as Landon said earlier, of my position. I'm an intern and the team was small. So I'm speaking to VPs and directors on a daily basis. So I'm like, oh my goodness, let me go ahead and type out what I'm going to say before I say it every day. And we were going through this portfolio of participants who submitted their photos for the ambassador program. And I'm making sure that they're diverse. If we have a little bit too many lighter faces, I'm like, okay, well, why don't we bring in this young lady over here? She has this amount of followers, and making sure that I have data to back up the recommendations that I'm making. And one particular scenario that felt uncomfortable in this meeting, but I pushed through. The voice was small, but it was strong. It was when we were planning what they would be posting content for, and it was holiday season. So Halloween is one of those holidays that doesn't sit right with everyone. And I grew up Christian the same way that Landon did, and possibly you too, Yasmin, coming up in the South. And I saw one of our influencers was also forwardly Christian on her page. And I made it a point to point out that she might not be comfortable doing a skull look or something that we would deem traditionally Halloween content because of her background. And it took them a second to digest what I was saying, but ultimately they ended up changing the content based on my recommendation. So that was something that I was nervous to do at first, but ultimately just following my gut instinct and making sure I had tact and the way that I delivered it really closed out the situation.
Love that. I love that answer. That's powerful. We love when that voice is small, but Chloe's saying, me too, I grew up with hallelujah. Amen.
The trunk or treats took precedence.
I'm telling you, revivals on Halloween. How about that? Oh, I love that. I love that. So So Christian, don't feel singled out because I know you said Cornell, but I'm gonna kick it on over to our HBCU grads. I'm gonna kick it on over to our HBCU grads because I do have a question, and Christian, I'm coming back to you. So as HBCU grads, tell us how your involvement throughout the HBCU experience has helped you to own your power here at ELC. So this is your time to shout your institution out. Okay, so Yasmin, I'm gonna start with you.
All right. So at Howard, I mean, it's just so much that has evolved me from Howard. I credit Howard to who I am today. One thing I would say for my experience, I think a lot of people will agree, is that I don't believe in closed doors. Like the first no is not the only no. You're not going to leave me here at no. I'm going to figure it out. We're going to have multiple discussions. I'm going to assert myself when needed. I'm going to be very outspoken to my desires and what I want. I'm going to come with evidence. I'm going to also just continue to push. And I think that drive for being a Howard University alum did wonders. One thing, when I entered the workforce, my confidence, I realized, was above my peers. I did not accept the status quo. Not saying that I questioned it, but I always wanted to know kind of why. If you told me no, you have to come, back up the no, because I really like pushing forward. I'm a yes person. I'm a yes and. That I know of, a lot of you guys have done that kind of program, the yes and scenario. That is me all day. And I think I credit Howard every day for allowing me to speak my voice, lead with confidence, and not being afraid that if I'm the only person in the room, my voice is just as valued as everyone sitting there at the table.
Definitely. I was going to say, given the fact that y'all, especially when my Howard friends say greetings and humble salutations, when they come out with that, I say, oh, here they go. They finna tear it up. So I love that. I love that. Tosin, I'm going to bring you in here. How did your HBCU experience help you?
Oh man, Howard have given so much to me from freshman year to graduating. One of the things that I always carry with me now is this advice that I got from the upperclassmen that I admired. So it was really the second semester freshman year. Something happened. It's probably the A building. We know how the A building goes, the administration building. But I was really down that day, and she saw me from across the yard, and she ran across and she said, "Don't ever let your crown fall." And that really stuck with me and still stays with me. Like no matter what kind of day I'm having, no matter how challenging the project may be, even if I'm not getting to where I want to go, but just owning my power by keeping my head up and staying focused on the end goal. Also, Howard taught me, the power of building and maintaining relationships, and which is also a very important aspect to ELC culture. So the power of connection, Howard has taught me that as well. And just being confident in myself. And, being in a space, I grew up in Long Island, in Suffolk, Long Island, and really having, the power of representation is really important. So when you're surrounded with people who are more like you and just seeing their confidence, it kind of rubs off on you, and just going to Howard really just showed me who I am as a person, as a very strong Black woman.
Love that. I love that. Shanice, I'm gonna bring you in here. Come on. I see they hyping you up in the chat. Tosin, Queen Tosin, fix your crown. Come on.
Yes.
Okay. Shanice, I'm gonna bring you in here. Same question.
Yes, so I graduated from Spelman College. We still love y'all, Howard. I do. And our motto is a choice to change the world. So really, in a nutshell, the persistence that's required to do that, the strength required to do that. And I'm going to quote Morehouse College here, the 5 wells: being well-read, well-dressed, well-traveled, well-spoken, and well-balanced. All of these things, we talk about work-life balance a lot, and ultimately that's what sustained me. Learning these things, learning these values in order to keep myself sharp, to keep myself just on top of the trends, what's happening. Of course, that's important in the beauty industry. And ultimately being a well-balanced person so that I can connect with the other people around me and make for better, more cross-functional work streams to be delivered.
Definitely. I love that. And Christian, I'm gonna bring you in here from the perspective of navigating a PWI like myself. Tell me about it. How did that help you? How did that empower you?
Oh, goodness. I'll be honest with you. It was a challenge for me, because in many instances, even though I went to a school in New York City, it's bizarre to say it, but I was one of few people of color in the room. It was mind blowing to me. And it took a while for me to find my voice in that setting. It took a while for me to feel comfortable bringing all of me to the table, because, I experienced from time to time some of those microaggressions around, how I pronounce certain words, because I am Latino, and if I see a word that is Spanish, I'm going to pronounce it with that accent. I don't care if it bothers you anymore. I used to, but it took a while for me to get there. I would say having that experience early on in my career as well, I'm now at a point where much like what Yasmin was saying, you're going to get what I'm giving you, and you're just going to have to. You're going to have to adapt. I mean, yes, when it comes to a professional setting, of course, you want to be moderate in how you're coming to the table, but I definitely don't censor myself based off of a fear of, being judged because of one aspect of my salient identity anymore. It is so tiring to have to do that on a daily basis.
I love it. I love it. Well, and then also too, when I chose the PWI, I got a lot of jabs from my friends who chose FAMU. I got a lot of knocks. They looked at me like I was crazy. Why would you choose to go down there? First off, they cut a check. Secondly, I recognize that it is important that we occupy all spaces, no matter where it may be. And so I chose that route because I knew that somebody had to go down there to advocate. I was the first Black male student government president in over 20 years. And now we have had 4 Black student government presidents in a row. I was the second. There was a third that came after me, a Black woman, and now another Black guy that just got elected a few weeks ago. So that's what I mean by when you show up and show out, raise some hell, flip some tables over, maybe cuss a few people out, that makes a difference. And I definitely did that in my time, for sure, for sure. Now, with that being said, I thank you so much to our panelists. And now I want to kick it on over to the audience. Y'all have been interacting, showing us love. Don't think I didn't peep high in the beginning. None of y'all want to comment in the chat, but now y'all are. So now I'm challenging y'all to ask some questions, to get engaged. We have a couple minutes for questions, so probably maybe 1 or 2. I did see one that was asked earlier, so I am going to honor that question because I did see it first. So maybe 1 or 2 of you panelists can answer this, but have any of you felt the glass ceiling, and do you plan to make Estee a career, a long-term career is what I think that they're asking. Sherry Winston asked that. So who wants to take that? Come on now, don't be shy. I'm gonna choose somebody. There it is.
I can start. Yes. So I'll answer the second question first. Yes, I definitely hope to make Estee Lauder a long-term career for me. I think that one of the beautiful things about this company, as I mentioned before, being a brand-led institution, there are so many opportunities to do different things. And as I've built out my network over the last few months, I've interacted with people at all levels within the company, some of whom have been part of the company for decades and still had growth, still were doing new things, still were learning new things. And I consider myself a lifelong learner. So to be in an environment where I can constantly learn new skills is really, really important to me. I don't want to be a paper pusher who just sits in the office all day doing the same thing day in and day out. It's so important for my advancement that I feel like I am learning something. Now, from a glass ceiling perspective, I want to own that I have some privilege in that space. I am a man in a corporate world, and there's privilege in that. Even when you're working for a beauty company, even when you're working for a company like Estee Lauder that has many, many women in positions of leadership, I understand that I certainly have privilege in that space. One of the things that I will say I was surprised about as I was coming into the company, through my business program, I was able to do some interview prep and coaching ahead of time. And I am someone who, I like to sparkle. I get my nails done all the time. And I had my nails done during my interview prep. And the first thing out of the instructor's mouth was, you're going to be in a corporate setting in the GM building with people wearing suits. You cannot have your nails painted.
Who said that?
It wasn't someone from ELC. It was interview prep. And so when I got my offer letter, the first thing out of my mouth to the hiring manager was, listen, I was advised on this aspect of my identity that is very important to me. It's not something that I'm willing to compromise on. I get my nails done as part of my mental health. That's my treat myself moment. And I'm not going to give that up for a job. I'll find a job that will accept me and my nails being painted. And she was like, no, that's not, like, this is a beauty company. There are people, everyone is welcome. There are people who have, you know, different color hair. There are people who come in with different colored makeup on all the time. Like, you are fine, you are welcome. You don't have to worry about that. And that was something that was important for me. It sounds like a really small thing, but if they're gonna pick apart my nails, what's next?
Definitely. And nails expensive, shoot. So once you got them already done, you better leave them on. Nails high, they a bill. I've seen it. Yasmin, I saw you unmuted yourself. I'll let you answer, and then we got to keep pushing.
Sure. I'll answer pretty quickly. Yes, echoing what Christian said, it's so many opportunities, especially being a brand led, that I would love to explore. So I am looking at Estee for a long-term career. And as far as the second part kind of the question is about the glass ceiling, this is my motto when it comes to glass ceiling. And I think as a Black woman entering any corporate setting, that's kind of the scenario that you're giving. And a couple things that I kind of see, mentorship is key. I believe that a lot of times that when you're discussing glass ceilings, it's because you just don't have the avenue or opportunity to understand culturally what it takes to achieve your goals. And I found that mentorship within Estee has really opened doors for me, having conversations across functions, asking for coffee chats for people where I want to go. I've literally done cold emails to VPs and gotten responses, had coffee chats, been able to just understand their function. How did they get there? Ask the question, like, how did you get to where you are today? And then start career mapping. And I've been fortunate enough with Estee where it's a relationship-driven company. So it allows you to constantly move laterally as well as up, as long as you take advantage of the opportunities that it presents itself. No one's going to kind of see you sitting there and say, hey, look at this, look at this. I think you have to also take ownership on yourself to achieve your goals. So this is my personal take on it. What's worked for me thus far in achieving my director's role and looking for moving was, one, getting a team within Estee that I felt as though I had a relationship with, not sitting back, constantly building relationship, asking for advice, critique, and constantly being a voice and making sure my voice is being heard and documented. And it's worked for me pretty well. I've been able to serve in different programs that Estee offers, such as From Every Chair, where I had a mentor who was the leader of the travel retail area. I've been able to work with different ERGs where I met different people. So for me, the glass ceiling, I haven't encountered where I felt as though I couldn't grow anymore, or I've hit my limit within Estee. So that's kind of my perspective on that question.
Thank you both. And thank you to all of our panelists for your amazing answers. Now, I really got to make sure the audience is paying attention. And this is how I'm going to make sure you're paying attention. Now we're going to our questionnaire, our raffle. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to open the floor up. So the rules are as follows. And I know how to enunciate. So there shouldn't be nothing that nobody misses on this. So with the raffle, there will be 3 featured questions focused on current and historical facts and information about She's Howard Own Your Power program. The first person to drop the correct answer in the chat in response to that question will win one of the products for one of our favorite portfolio brands. So I got the first question up for you. And again, you have to drop it in the chat. Okay, so the first person to get it. What is the definition of intersectionality? You can drop the letter in the chat or you can type out the answer. Likely quickest to drop the letter. Oh, Christina got it. The answer is D, all of the above. Okay. We're going to go on and chug along to our next question. Each of our ELC brand supports a unique social investment program that positively impacts our environment, our communities, the development of next-gen leaders. Like She's Howard, the Emerging Leaders Fund is an initiative that supports professional development for emerging women leaders. Which brand within our portfolio heads this program? Let me see. Should make sure I know the answer. Let me see who got it. Let's see who got it first. It was AH. Let me see whose name that is. Let me make sure I say their name. What their acronyms are just AH, but Estee Lauder was the answer. So AH, whoever you may be, you got it right first. Okay, I stand corrected. I sit corrected. That was our last question. So with that being said, to our two winners, we do have tracks of who is in the chat and who just won. So whoop, whoop, we got two winners for the questions. Thank you all so much for participating in our raffle. Thank you to our phenomenal panelists, but don't sign off just yet. Don't sign off just yet, because I already know as soon as you start hearing thank yous, you start tuning out. I really want to take this moment to introduce a representative from Howard University's alumni relations to close us on out.
Hello, my name is Bilal Badruddin. My pronouns are he, him, his. I currently serve as the interim director of alumni relations here at Howard University. First, I want to just say thank you to our ELC folks for serving on the panel and really talking about how your intersectional identities really shape your experience at ELC. But then also for our alums that are on the call, you know, we understand at Howard, your Blackness is very much one aspect of who you are, but whether it's your queerness, your gender identity, your ability, that all of that really shapes your Howard experience. And so as we continue to program for you as alums, we want to ensure that all of our program is really mindful of all of those identities and you as a holistic person. So continue to look out for all of our future programming. And speaking of our future programming, we look forward to seeing you all next month, May 23rd at same time, same place. We will be on Zoom for our next She's Howard installment. Thank you.
Definitely. On behalf of the Estee Lauder companies, we just want to thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us for our discussion of the power on intersectionality. I hope that as a company and as individuals, we can continue to drive insight into action for every way forward and commit to better supporting our communities. Make sure you sign up for that next event and look out for correspondence on it. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful evening. Have a good one, everyone.